It's time now for the political analysis of Fromm and Fuller. Al Fromm, former political advisor to President Bill Clinton, and Craig Fuller, former political advisor to both Presidents Ronald Reagan and George H.W. Bush. Good afternoon this time. Well, Al, how do we start this conversation? There clearly has been a huge fiasco in terms of national security with this leak that 18 of the Trump administration, including the Secretary of Defense, got on a software program to talk about what they don't believe is a war plan. But it's an extraordinary story on so many levels. But give us your overview. What the hell's going on?
I mean, we have the Keystone Cops running our foreign policy. We spent the fall talking about worrying about the incompetence of the Secretary of Defense nominee and the Director of National Intelligence. I guess when I look at it, all of this, I mean, other than how frightening it is to think that these people are in control of the national security of the country, and their striking incompetence and bad judgment to go on essentially it's an encrypted but a public website for their communications. But the other thing is their response. I mean, they lie. That's all they do. They lie. Apparently war plans are not classified anymore. They seem to have no regard for or no respect for the judgment of the American people. I mean, it's one thing to admit a mistake and then try to move on. It's another to pretend that it's not a mistake, lie about it, lie about what people hear, and then attack the guy who they put in the chain. I mean, these brutal attacks on the Atlantic and on Jeff Goldberg. I mean, it's everything we've come, or at least I've come to hate about this administration. And where's the response? I mean, where is the response from the Republicans? I gather Roger Wicker just said they're going to hold a hearing in the Armed Services Committee. Well, that's nice. I hope they do. I spent the last year worrying about what would happen if Trump, in his campaign for retribution and his self-serving, only everything for himself attitude became, ran the administration, and what that kind of a threat that would be for our democracy. And, when you think about that and everything else they've done, from Elon Musk's chainsaw, to just completely disrupting the world order, joining forces with our enemies and going after our allies, wanting to annex our closest friend. I mean, it's bizarre and serious, and so I mean, I guess I'll stop there. But on this particular thing, my guess is they won't even pay a price. But eventually, all this stuff's going to catch up with them, because when all of his great tariffs go into effect and we have inflation, when the economy sinks, and when the chainsaw hits the wrong program, people are going to respond. And in the end, the only people who are going to take him out and stop this are the American people, because obviously the Congress doesn't seem willing to do it, and the courts may try to stop him, but he doesn't seem to give any indication that he will abide by court orders.
Greg, what's your take?
I have in my past 8 years of service in the White House, and I've been through a variety of military actions, and I have to say, we're just better than this. There are people throughout the government and the military and the intelligence community that are just better, and they're not being served well, and the president's not being served well by this cast of characters. those who are interested in this story, there's been a lot about it in the last few days, and it's going to continue, in my view, for quite a while. But I want to point out a couple of things. First of all, Jeffrey Goldberg, editor of The Atlantic, is a very experienced, very intelligent, very seasoned reporter, journalist. And he was actually the one adult in the room or on the chat. I mean, he was the one who first said, I can't possibly be getting this for real. It must be a fraud. And then when he realized it wasn't a fraud because he had information that was absolutely information that was classified, I'll get to that in a minute, he realized that this was pretty serious and he waited to see if something actually happened. And when it did, he realized somehow he'd been put in this chat. And when he wrote about it, which is his right to do and responsibility in a way as a journalist, he withheld information that was in his view sensitive, classified, and could put people at risk, which was the responsible thing to do. I might note also that the other person in this process that we haven't heard from until about 3 days into it is Secretary of State Marco Rubio, who today said a serious mistake was made, but we're going to fix it. Well, that's what they should have said when the story broke, that it was a serious mistake. But the question is, what's the mistake? And yes, there's a mistake in putting a journalist into the chat group, that's for sure. But the real mistake is that they're using a commercial platform called Signal to share this information. And it's not just my judgment, it's the judgment of the intelligence community who warned senior government officials not to use Signal because it was going to be hacked. It was going to our adversaries were going to get access to it. We don't know whether they have or not. Signal says they've never been hacked. Somehow, I doubt that given the way the world works today. But the fact that they've used this and probably used it since they got into office raises a whole set of concerns. We just happened to find out about this one because they put Jeffrey Goldberg into the mix. But then I go back to my other point. This was first of all, you've got to get your policy straightened out and correct, and the senior officials need to be aligned. One of the messages was the vice president doubted whether the president had an adequate amount of information on this and whether this was even the right thing to do. That got kind of squelched by, of all people, Stephen Miller. I thought he was in charge of immigration, but no, he's the one who clarified the president's thinking on this subject, and they went forward. But this whole notion that, I'm going to keep you as the national security advisor said, I'm going to set up this chat group to keep everybody informed. Well, the whole intelligence national security apparatus has a means of doing that. And yes, not everybody can go to the Situation Room, but we've spent millions and millions of dollars as a nation to make sure the key figures in our government can talk in a secured way on these matters of national security. So from beginning to end, it really was amateur hour. And then the spinning starts. Well, this really wasn't a war plan. Well, I guarantee you that Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth was taking information off of a classified document and sharing it with his pals to tell them the planes are flying, the bombs are dropping. Amazingly, we had a witness who watched the target walk into his girlfriend's residence. Well, how would you feel if you were an operative abroad and had this sort of information revealed, that we had a real-time observer on the ground where the bombs were being dropped? And again, it wasn't so much that Jeffrey Goldberg was a risk. He was doing the responsible thing. It's that they were doing this on a site that Russians, Iranians, China, could all and probably do have access to. And that's, again, not my speculation. That's the warning from the U.S. intelligence community. So it really raises questions about the quality of some of the officials that are in these highest intelligence and national security positions in our government. And I do think there'll be a price to be paid. And I do think that in this one, President Trump, I may disagree a little with Al. I think the president's going to have to send somebody overboard on this one. I just don't think you can walk away from this. And there are some signs in the reporting that he is very, very frustrated because he's the one who likes to take credit for everything that's beautiful and wonderful. This is not beautiful or wonderful, and he's got to bear his appropriate amount of responsibility.
Al, what is the responsibility for the Democrats in all of this? What? I guess there's a game plan.
Well, I'm not. I'm not sure there's really a game plan. The question for me is, as all of these things that the Trump administration is doing continue, how do you stop it? How do you turn it around? Uh, you know, in Craig and I both worked for strong presidents, and who wanted to get their way, but they were constrained by the rule of law and the system. This crowd doesn't seem to have those same constraints. So the question is how you can stop them, and that's really important for Democrats. Democrats have to be smart about it. I mean, in an ordinary administration, when you had as many court decisions go against it as Trump has had, they would have slowed down and stopped and rethought policy. It's not happening. Uh, you know, I've been in administration. We had Democratic control of Congress, but that didn't stop the Congress from doing oversight. Now that's not happening. So I think the Democrats have to be smart. And the third way you stop the real way you stop them is you're going to have to beat him in an election. And there's some indication that he's paying a price. There was a state Senate seat in Pennsylvania, I think Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, up yesterday. That has been it's been a dead red seat. Trump won it by over 15 points. I think McCormick won it by over 20 or 25 points. It went Democratic last night. So, does that say anything? Who knows? But my guess is it was much more a reaction to what's going on in the country than it was what was going on in that county. Uh, but again, so what the Democrats have to do, our responsibility is to develop a strategy that will uh, uh, allow us to take advantage of Trump's mistakes and his declining approval ratings in 26 and 28. And to me, that means, and I'm not going to go into much detail because we don't have time, but it really means rebuilding our party uh, and rebuilding its credibility, because we all knew what Trump was going to be like. He told us what he was going to be like, and the American people still chose him last year. So what does that tell us about us? We need to do better. And so we need a redefinition of our party. We need a recommitment to the values that made us a majority party for a good part of the previous century. And we need new ideas that connect with people. And that's what we have to focus on. We have to focus on making a Democratic Party an alternative that the American people want to choose.
Greg, you have the last word.
Well, I guess one thing I would add to this is that moments like this weaken the president, and many Democrats found their voice in the last couple days at these hearings. I agree with Al. There needs to be a positive message, but I do think that this is a president that's been protected by some weird political Teflon that he seems to wear. On this one, there's a moment that needs to be explored, and that is when Donald Trump said on Monday, "I don't know what you're talking about. I haven't heard anything about this," meaning this incident with the Atlantic and the publication of this chat. There's only three possibilities. He was told, and he just chose to lie. He was told, and he forgot about it. Or the third one is he has a chief of staff and a national security advisor who chose not to tell him, which is in some ways the least forgivable. But this gets to the way the president conducts foreign policy, it gets to the way he interacts with his appointees. And I think this is a moment in time that weakens him in some very real ways. That if it's, and to the extent that any of this ever gets, repeated or replicated around other issues, it'll be far more serious. But I don't think that either party, in all honesty, should lose the moment and ask the question, just how is this president functioning in the White House? Because to not be aware of something this serious is really not plausible unless there's a real unusual way of conducting business inside that White House. I do think that both parties should spend time trying to understand what happened and trying to make sure that it doesn't happen again. And I'll go to where Al was as well. I think there should be some reevaluation as to whether we have people at the caliber the nation deserves running some of our intelligence and foreign affairs defense institutions.
Well, we have to leave it there. Al Fromm, Craig Fuller, thanks so much indeed. We will see you next week.